All right, everybody, welcome back to the Hawks Huddle Podcast. If you are listening to this, welcome to Radio Laurier. If you are watching this, welcome to the Hawks Huddle Podcast YouTube channel. Make sure to subscribe to this channel and give this video a like. We have a very special guest here today. We have the senior NBA insider for Yahoo Sports, TNT sideline reporter, and the host of the Posted Up with Chris Haynes podcast. Welcome to the show, Chris Haynes. Thanks for coming on.
Jaclyn, Mark, now thanks for having me on. I hope you guys having fun with this platform, and I wish y'all nothing but success with as far as y'all go with it.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, we appreciate that, Chris. It's awesome to have you on. We'll dive right into it here. Obviously, you've seen a lot, of course, today on social media and such. The 1 year anniversary of Kobe Bryant and his daughters passing away last year. I just kind of wanted to start off on that, Chris. Being that you've covered the NBA for a long time as a team reporter and now as a national reporter with Yahoo. Just kind of what is your view on Kobe and the impact that he had kind of to basketball as a whole, given all the experience you've had, Chris?
Yeah, Kobe is you think about his career, it's pretty complex. But that's what you expect when you watch somebody grow in this game, from coming into the league at 18 to being a father and being a basketball pioneer, not just for the NBA but for the WNBA as well.
Yeah.
And so I remember I was at home when I heard the news, and you just couldn't believe it, and you were just waiting on somebody to say, nah, Kobe got out. You know what I mean? Like if there's anybody who can beat this, it would be Kobe Bryant. And you like, I'm just waiting for somebody to say Kobe got his daughter, and they hopped on a parachute and sailed down somewhere. And we never got that kind of, we never got that news. And so that was tough. I wasn't extremely close to Kobe like I am a lot of superstars, because when my career started to like take off, Kobe was he was on the verge of retiring. So I was a beat reporter actually, in Portland when Kobe was heading to retirement. And so but I've interviewed him in scrums. I never had a one-on-one interview with him like that, so I was able to gain a personal relationship. But it's tough, man. I can't believe it's 1 year already. I just remember what everybody was doing. I interviewed a couple players about where they were at and where their mindset was at, where their head was at when they heard the news, and that's tough, man. It's tough. You feel for the other family members. Other family that were on that plane. On that helicopter, and Gigi and Vanessa. That's tough. It's tough, and it's hard to put into words.
No, it definitely is. It's like you kind of said, it's a nightmare that everybody kind of wanted to not believe, and unfortunately that was the case. Kobe, like you said, he wasn't just sort of, it wasn't just his on-court accomplishments. Everything he did off the court as well. You talked about the WNBA, just the way with the Mamba mentality and the motivation that he had, like just the impact that he left on other players. I think you kind of touched on it. Can you see that through interviewing some of these other superstars?
Yeah, it's funny. You can see, like when you talk to somebody like me, I'm 39. And so when you talk to somebody like myself, anybody probably, I would say people in all of the 40s, and I would say most people in their 30s, if you ask them who their favorite player was, not their favorite player, but if you ask them who the best player to ever play, most will say Michael Jordan. But then when you start getting, I would say probably 28 and below, that's a different generation right there. And a lot of them, I don't know if I would say most, but a lot of them will say the best player ever was Kobe Bryant. So it depends on, where you came up, where you when you were born. And you can see that. I remember Kyrie Irving. He was one of the first ones I ever heard say. This is before Kobe passed, when I was covering the Cavs back in the day. And he said Kobe Bryant's the best player ever. And I found that, I'm like, what? Kobe Bryant, man. I'm like, Kobe got all of his moves from Jordan. Like, what are you talking
Right.
about? Like, how is he the best? But that's just what they saw. And you're gonna resonate. Um, you're gonna be closer to the people that you grew up watching and emulating. And so you can see the impact. And it was, it's just interesting to see the tier of players who view him in such high regard, even over the greats like Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, or whoever you want to throw in that category. But his impact is there, man. He's the Mamba mentality, man. There's players who take up that mentality. They say they got the Mamba mentality. That's something that you didn't hear before. Before you heard people saying, I just got that edge, but that edge has a name now.
Yeah.
And that's the Mamba mentality. And Kobe is one of the greats, man. He's one of the greats of all time. And that was tough, man. Last year, like as 2020, and that was brutal. That was brutal. And just for the NBA basketball community, January 1 of last year, that's when David Stern passed.
Right.
So it started like
right away.
off. Yeah, right away.
It was like,
so man,
Kobe was like that glue to like the world too, I think, because that's kind of also when things went downhill. And you said that you remember where you were when Kobe passed. I think everyone does. Like I remember I was in the car on my way back up to school, and I get like a screenshot message from one of my friends saying that Kobe died. I think it was on like Six Buzz, the Toronto social media stuff. And I'm like, it's not true, it's fake. So I go on Twitter, and it's all Kobe. And like of course I watch basketball, but many people I know don't. But you can just tell that everybody was off that day and that week because of it. It affected every single person. And we talked about the impact that he made on the NBA. Now moving forward without Kobe, does that change the entire game now because Kobe's gone? Like the way guys play, is there just a different vibe now? Like especially I guess for you, even when you're at games, like is there just a different vibe even at Lakers games because Kobe is gone?
So the way the season has started right now, like media is not allowed around the players, and we're not allowed in the locker room. So this is a different experience for us right now. But I will say after Kobe passed, and this was pre-pandemic, so we were able to still go in the locker room. But no, it was especially when the Lakers game. So you got, I'm pretty sure you guys remember when right after Kobe passed. So across from Staples Center is called LA Live. So it's all these shopping centers, and it's like a real cool, like you guys gotta, if you ever come to LA, you gotta go to that area. But they flooded that area with all this Kobe memorabilia and flowers. It was ridiculous. It was crazy. It was like, and when I went and saw it in person, I was like, man, you see all these people like that painted Kobe and Gigi portraits, and they were just putting them all in this area, and people were just coming to pay their respects. It was, I've never seen anything like it. And like I said, I'm 39. That was the biggest death that I can witness outside of my family and loved ones. But that was the biggest death that I've witnessed in my lifetime in the sports world. Like maybe just in the world in general.
Yeah.
Outside of my family and friends. I can't recall, it's like people like you go back to the 60s, and they always remember, Martin Luther King passed. You remember when it was tough. I mean, that was surreal, but it was, you can definitely feel the vibe. You can definitely see guys coming at that time, coming into the arena with their heads down. It just wasn't the same. You know, you've seen guys tearing up during the national anthem, just thinking about Kobe and G. And it's so sad, it's so tragic because it has multiple layers to this tragedy where, you know, it's Kobe Bryant, but then there's how old was Gigi? She's 12 or something like
Yeah,
that.
she was 12, I think. Yeah.
12, and then you got her teammates. They're like, there's so many sad layers to that, man. It's overwhelming. It really is. And so it was you know, those flowers, those pictures, those murals, they were, I want to say they were out there for like a month, right, you know, right across the street from the Staples Center. And so every time you came in the area, you would see it. And then not just that, you know, downtown Los Angeles, they had billboards of Kobe right after that. It's like, you couldn't escape it.
I saw that. I was in Los Angeles in February, actually. So I'm driving around. All you see is just Kobe things. You see people walking around in their Kobe jerseys. I feel like that's always going to be there. People are always going to be honoring Kobe for the next coming of years. Even, you know, we're going into the 20s and Kobe hasn't played in years. People are always going to remember Kobe, not just for his, you know, him playing, but for things that he did afterwards with, you know, becoming a film maker, being, you know, a girl dad, and everything that he did. I think that everyone is gonna hopefully remember that, and I think the NBA will always like keep Kobe's name alive.
One thing I will remember is I went to Kobe's it was his public, I guess, homegoing, as you would call it, where it was at the Staples Center, and you know, Vanessa came out and spoke, and you know, you had Diana Taurasi spoke, Michael Jordan spoke, and you know, I lost it, you know, at a couple points during that service, and you know, it's Kobe Bryant, you know, and it really puts things in perspective. Is that could have easily been, I'm just saying anything. Like, if this happened to Kobe, this could happen to anybody. And it really puts in perspective the limitations that we have as human beings here. You know, and so you know, going up there seeing Michael Jordan really doesn't show emotions. And when I was in there watching him, and you know, he's tearing up. I'm like, damn, this is my favorite player. I feel like the greatest player. You've never seen him cry. You've always, I'm pretty sure you all saw the Michael Jordan documentary. He was always attacking somebody. You know what I mean? He was aggressive. Like, he didn't show no pain, no vulnerability, no emotion. He's just attacking, relentless, and you love to see that. And Kobe was very similar, but to see Michael Jordan just crying, just pouring, I'm like, wow, this is real. You know, this is real. And you know, to see Vanessa go up there with so much strength and just hard. Go up there and talk. I lost it. That's the first time I lost it. When Vanessa went up there and was talking, I lost it. I'm in there with the media, and I had to put my head down. I was like, who can envision this, man? Like, somebody you've grown up with. And you know, we're young. He's a young man, and just reaching the next phase of his life and doing so much for the game of basketball for women. And that was tough, man. That was tough. Even if you didn't know Kobe Bryant, even if you didn't like Kobe Bryant, you know, Kobe had a past that, you know, whenever you're chronicling his career, you have to bring up, you know, the Colorado incident. But you know, even if you don't like Kobe, you got to have a heart and feel for everybody who was involved in that tragedy. And that was tough.
Yeah, Chris, because like you said, I mean, it's so sad on so many different levels too. And just, you know, Kobe being so young himself, just terrible. I do want to kind of transition a bit here.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. For sure, Chris.
Thank you. I see Jaclyn about to tear up. You got a tissue over there, Jaclyn? You all right?
I'm good.
We'll go to something a little bit more
Pick it up a little bit.
All right.
For sure, Chris. So I know this is probably a question you've been asked a bunch. I'm sure you've been asked a bunch over the past couple months. I just kind of want to get a sense of how it all was in the bubble this past summer. Obviously, you spent about 3 months there. A lot of things happening. Just how different was the experience in the bubble?
It was an experience that I felt I had to be at to document history. This is something that's never been done in any sport, in any profession. So I felt I had to be there. And this was a pandemic, so you're trying to like, as smart as we think the experts are in whatever field they happen to be in this case, medicine and disease control, nobody knew the answers. Nobody knew what we were, getting ourselves into. Um, but it was a business that the NBA felt needed to be ran, need to get right back to business. And so they put all the necessary preventative measures in place to try to make sure they kept everybody as safe as possible. So, but nobody knew how this was going to go off. Like when I started, I got there. So I was there. Me and Malika Andrews from ESPN. We were there. We were there the longest. We were there the longest at the bubble. We got there like a week and a half before the teams got there. We got there in late June. So we were there the longest out of anybody. So we got there in late June. And I remember getting there and I was like, damn, okay, we're here. This is June. This pandemic is getting crazier and crazier. And particularly here in Florida, where we were at. And so I was thinking like the finals would be in October or something like that. We ain't making it. Like we are not making it there. Like there is no way. Like, so I was just, but anyways, they did a good job. And I think at the end of the day, what the bubble did show was that if you put everybody in one isolated spot, test them every day, you do the 6 feet of distance and all that, it can work. The NBA showed it. There was no more positive tests. You got through the initial parts, because everybody came in from wherever they were at. So there were positive tests early on, in the bubble phase. But as it went on, there was no problem. And so when I was in the bubble, I was walking around with my guys, my guy Mark Spears from ESPN's Undefeated, my guy Gary Washburn from Boston Globe, my guy John Scott from Turner TNT. We would all be around each other and we would talk. My guy Sekou Smith, who's NBA Turner, who is pray for him. He's battling COVID right now, so we're praying for him. But he's we will always talk about how we're in the safest place in the world. Like being here, the safest place in the world. I'm gonna keep it real. The NBA didn't want to show. They didn't want to show any visuals. You come on in, babe. They didn't want to show any visuals of us being, right next to each other. But we were in the bubble. We were.
Yeah.
The NBA didn't want to put that, image out there, but we were. We felt safe. We were tested every day. Everybody was tested positive. Testing negative.
Negative.
Hey, I always get that confused because positive is a good thing. Like you want to be positive.
No, I do that too.
Yeah, but we were all tested negative, and we felt like we were in the safest place in the world, and so we were not this 6 feet apart.
Yeah.
And, it felt good to be normal again. It felt, you know what I mean? That part felt good.
That was
now, the downside to all that, I was lightweight depressed in the bubble because I'm away from my wife and kids. I'm away from my family members. And, I ain't never been away from my family for 3.5 months. And, we couldn't bring our family in. And one thing that really hit me, that really hurt was, the players, they got to bring their wives, their girlfriend, their kids in probably a month and a half into the bubble. And while I'm happy to see them reunited, it hurt. Like I'm seeing guys see their kids. And I remember, there's a video you probably seen because from your neck of the woods in Toronto with Fred VanVleet when he got reunited with
Yeah.
Yes.
his wife and kids, and the kids, his son came up, daddy, daddy. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, I it was a great feeling, but I miss my kids too. You know what I mean? I
Mm.
miss my family too, and so that kind of hurt. Like, so that's like added a little extra salt to the wound, and it was tough. I went through it. I had good days. I had bad days. It wasn't really much for us to do. The NBA did a good job, but just to keep it real, the NBA, they cater to the players more so than
Right.
than media members, and I get it. Not arguing, not complaining, but that was a tough time for me.
What was your, like, I guess, day in the life? Like, did you have like a certain schedule every day that you had to go for breakfast, or you had to go to a special room for media? Like, what was, I guess, like the day in the life of Chris Haynes?
So they had a designated area for us where we can go and get snacks pretty much 24 hours a day. And then they had windows of window slots for breakfast. So breakfast might be start at 7 a.m. and it stops at 9:30. So there would be somebody, but the food was horrible. The
Oh,
food
really?
was horrible,
No.
and that's the food. I want to say, like, these publications, like, whoever, it was about what, 20 of us there, and so it was like, to cover the bubble, you had to pay like $75,000 to be there. You know what I mean? And so that included the daily testing, that included your room and board, and that included the food that they would provide every day. And that food, oh God, it was. But so on the bright side, when it comes to food, I love food. I love food. So when it comes to food, there were about 7 or 8 different restaurant vendors outside the bubble that were allowed to come deliver um, to you. So
Yeah.
I did that a lot, great, which was great. And that's what you got to spend that money outside. That's money you got
Yeah.
to spend. You know what I mean? That's
Right.
not that doesn't take care of the food in that regard. And that was fine. But remember, you're only 7 or 8 different options outside. So you're not getting a good variety. And I love soul food. And so it was one time, like, deep in the bubble, they allowed for a soul food vendor to deliver in. So that was good. But the food as a whole, like, I didn't eat much of the food that the bubble provided us because it just wasn't bad. But that was really it. So that was the schedule on the food, and then the games, like, Hall was brutal. So when the bubble first started, when the season first started, the games were like from noon
Yeah.
all the way till midnight. And
Oh
so
God.
I would go initially because you just trying to get a feel for everything. And so I would go to these games and be there from noon to midnight. And it was,
Oh my gosh.
you know, there there's no need for that much basketball to be played in any time. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like, let alone watch it. And so you had to, like, kind of wing yourself off and kind of, like, really plan your schedule accordingly. Like, no, I don't need to go to a Phoenix Suns, Washington Wizards game. I don't need to
Yeah.
go, like, let me prioritize here. And so then when the team started getting eliminated, then the game started coming on later and later and later. And then you can kind of, like, spread yourself out. And so then I also had obligations for TNT, so I would do, sidelines for certain games. But yeah, you had to, each person, depending on who they are, you may have a beat writer. They're going to every Boston Celtics game, and that may be the only game they go to. Then they go to their hotel and write. But as a national reporter, I'm kind of responsible to, my obligations kind of be everywhere a little bit. But still, I had to, like, spread myself out and understand, like, this is a long bubble. You ain't got to be everywhere every single day. And so, each person had their own individual schedule.
Yeah, I bet that was one of the better days in the bubble for you, Chris, when you were allowed to have the soul food come in. There.
Oh man, Mark, it was, Sienna. I'm gonna throw this out. Sienna's restaurant out there in Orlando, Florida, and the brother, he had just opened up like 3 months prior to the bubble, so he wasn't in long. And so, man, I supported that brother every
Yeah.
single week.
For
Every
sure,
single week. Man.
for sure. There was one game, Chris, that was really notable in the bubble. I was just wondering if you were there at the Bucks Magic game that started the kind of player protests in the social change that was going on this summer. Were you covering that whole um, ordeal, sort of?
I covered that whole ordeal, but I wasn't going to be present at that game. And so
Okay.
it's about like shuttle. So the way it works to get to the arenas, there's three different arenas, but to get to that area, we're about a 5 to 7 minute shuttle ride over, and the shuttles leave every 30 minutes from where we're staying to get over there. And so first I'm getting texts, hey man, the games ain't starting. Have you heard anything? Like, are they doing anything? And so once I realized something was going on, that's when I headed over there because they didn't come
Right.
out of the locker room. And so I covered that whole ordeal from you know when it happened. But no, I wasn't going to be at that game. Like, so if they were to play, I wasn't going to be there. But yes, I was there for that whole thing, and it was funny too because not funny, but while that was going on, they were in there for hours, and they were, we got word of what they were doing, calling city officials, trying to see what they can do, and we were just waiting. We were just outside the locker room waiting, and then you would see players leave periodically to go to the restroom. There was no
Right.
restroom in that locker room, so they would come out, walk past us, go to the restroom, wouldn't say anything to us, go right back. And so that would happen periodically. So, but we're just waiting outside the locker, like waiting, like what they're gonna do, what's going on. We
Yeah.
knew the game was postponed, but they're in there doing something, and we got to cover this. And I remember Mark, and I'm glad you brought that up. My good friend Mark Stein of the New York Times. Me and
Yeah.
him worked together at ESPN. Love that brother, man. But he came up to me while we're waiting. He was like, you know what? This is the end. We're going home tomorrow. And I got excited. I'm like, what? You think so? We going home? This is in July, I believe. I
Yeah.
believe this is in July. I'm like, we're going home? You think so? It might have been early August, but I can't remember. It's around there.
I think
But
August. Yeah. Yeah.
it was August. Okay,
I think so.
August.
Yeah.
And I was like, we going home? You think so? And he's like, man, because all the other games, you know, canceled that day.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was like, wow. And so here I am, Mark. Don't get me wrong. Like, this is an important time that we're covering. But, man, I'm missing my family. I'm missing home. I'm missing real food. And so I was sitting there standing, and I'm like, I couldn't imagine, like, well, hold on, man. I've been here since June. I can really be at home this time next year? I mean, this time tomorrow? Like, I'm just envisioning this in my head. And so I'm like, let me not listen to Mark Stein. So I started texting players, like trying to get a sense. I'm doing this right outside the Bucks locker room.
Yeah.
And I'm even texting some Bucks players. And I'm texting like 10, 15 players. And I asked them, I said, hey, you think they're going to stop the bubble? Because, players already didn't want to be there because everything that was going on in society. It was a pandemic, but the George Floyd murder, Breonna Taylor murder. So a lot of players were feeling guilty of just playing a game during such an important time. And so I'm texting 10 or 15 players. I'm like, you think this is it? Think it's done? And one player said they think this is it. Every other player said, nah, we'll get back to playing. And I was like, damn. I'm like, man, we stuck here. We stuck. And so I told Stein what I heard. He was like, oh, shoot. But, the Bucks came out later. They released a statement. And then I went on TNT soon after that and gave my report from, what I was hearing, how this all transpired and what was going to go on from there. And then from there, that's when it was like that 2-day hiatus of negotiating window to get back to play. So that was, again, I'm glad I was there because it was history. This was history in a bunch of regards, but it wasn't the easiest time.
I just want to mention, I guess, one more thing. I guess I don't know if it's really about the bubble, but I do want to move on to your life. How would you say the NBA handled everything with Black Lives Matter? Because we've seen football do some things that weren't the greatest. And hockey, I guess they've try to do things. How do you think NBA has handled everything in the past? I guess even I guess it's been 7 years with Black Lives Matter movement, with the I can't breathe shirt and everything with kneeling. Do you think basketball is doing a good job with those kinds of things?
I think all sports leagues, including the NBA, have been reacting to how their players have handled uh, these senseless shootings on people of color, particularly black people. Um, it's not like they were proactive. You know what I'm saying? So, with that being said, the NBA is, has done. Look, the NBA and NFL for that matter have done more this past year than that they've ever done for the black community. Period. That's just a fact. I mean, donating to black initiatives, donating to black businesses, to nonprofit organizations. That's never been done before. And the only reason is because the players have demanded that they get more involved. When you have these leagues, when you talk about the NBA, the NFL, these are leagues that are predominantly dominated by African American, black players, and it took the George Floyd murder, the Breonna Taylor murder, for everybody. Because I don't know if you guys are familiar, but Black Lives Matter. When you said Black Lives Matter before those two tragedies in particular, but when you said Black Lives Matter before, it was a phrase that wasn't universally accepted. It was something that it created division a lot of times because people got offended. Well, white lives matter, blue lives matter, and that was never the point. The point
Right.
wasn't to say that black lives should matter more than anybody else. That's not what it was saying. The point is that black people have been so marginalized and affected with with systemic racism all throughout our tenure here in the United States, that it's time for us to say, like, we matter too, care about us too. That was what was being said. And so before those George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, it caused tension, if you would say that. And then when those situations happen, I've never seen this in my lifetime. So again, 2020 was a tragic year, but also it was a productive year and a progressive year when I seen people of all walks of life, all colors, rallying together at these Black Lives Matter movements and these rallies and these protests. And I went to a protest in the Bay Area, and it was a Black Lives Matter movement protest, and it was 90% like white people. And I was like, wow, like, it's finally hitting, like, because black people for so long have been speaking on, like, how the playing field isn't level for us. It's always been that way. And there's always been resistance to that. It was like, well, people would on a opposing end were like, well, if it's not level playing field, you got to do what it takes to get yourself out. I'm like, well, it's not like that. It's like, if you're here already and I grow up in this world right here, you know what I mean? I have to climb way, twice as much or 10 times more to just get on your level. And everybody is not built to cover that much ground. It takes an extraordinary person. That's why where I come from, man, I didn't have like real male role models that would be viewed in life as productive members of society. You know what I mean? I grew up around drug dealers. I grew up around pimps. I grew up around people who would be gone the next day due to gang violence or whatever. And those are the people I looked up to. And it took for me when I got this job. I got this job like when I was like 28, 29. And I remember I went to Atlanta I'm actually here in Atlanta right now. I had my daughter starting college, so I had to check her into a dorm. But I remember when I came here in Atlanta, and all of you guys have been to Atlanta before, but a lot of black people. But the difference here, it's a lot like this is like business capital of the world for black people here in Atlanta. And I remember going to downtown, walking through downtown, and I'm seeing a lot of black men wearing suits going to court, and they're not on trial. You know what I mean? These are lawyers, these are judges, and I've never seen that where I came from. I've never seen that, and so that opened my eyes. Like, damn, there's more out there. And so I always try to say, like, if you grow up in an area where there's all this corruption going on, 9 times out of 10, most people are going to stay in that because that's what's familiar to them. And so I bring all that up to say that when black people have been banging on the drum for, saying we want equal rights and all that stuff all this long, we always felt like people weren't listening. And in order to make a dent, to put a dent in society, to pull down barriers, we need our white friends to help, because most times those are the people in power. So we need them to come to assist. And it felt like the Black Lives Matter movement of 2020, when you had all races coming together, it seemed like for the first time, I've never seen that, not in my lifetime. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it was big, and that's when we started to see progress. And so that was a very important time in our history, period.
Yeah, and obviously coming, from you, Chris, a national, black reporter, and as you said, people finally got it. Chris, you sort of touched on your upbringing there. I kind of wanted to get into that a little bit. Mm-hmm. You talked about, how you grew up with, drug dealers and in that neighborhood there. What kind of led you down your whole journey of then, getting that job, with Portland, and then covering Cleveland and Golden State, and now with Yahoo? Just how was the whole journey, and how did you, get led down a path of sports journalism and sports reporting?
I got led on, it was all I wanted to do was make it to the NBA. And if not make it to the NBA, I wanted to go play overseas. Mm-hmm. And so I chased hoop dreams until I was 24. I was jumping from college to college, playing here, not getting any playing time here, transferring, going here. I did all that, up until I was 24. And it hit a point, man. I had a wife and 2 kids at the time, and I realized, like, damn, I'm 25, 24, approaching 25. I don't know what I want to do in life. Hoop was it. I didn't know. And at this time, like, I did just enough in school to stay eligible. And, you only got to have like a 2.0 to be eligible to play. And I wasn't taking real classes during that time. And I was taking like a bunch of PE classes, elective here, and, maybe take one hard course a semester. But I wasn't taking real classes. So I was well behind. You know what I mean? I'll have units, and I'll have the GPA, the minimum GPA needed, but I didn't have my core classes. And so I'm far behind. And I went to work, I got a kid, I got two daughters at the time. And I'm like, man, I got to start working. Like, hoop dreams is not happening. So I went to start working at Napa Auto Parts. And I'm going to try to condense this. I'm sorry, I'm going to try to condense it. Yeah. But I started working at Napa Auto Parts as a delivery driver, delivering car parts. Yeah. And I felt good. I'm like, okay, I'm finally working. I'm supplying for the family. I'm not making a lot of money, obviously, but I felt good. I'm working. I'm like, okay, maybe I can do this. And so I had a manager who, he was my store manager. Love this dude. Name's Ruben. I probably should have said his name, but whatever. Store manager, love this guy. I would come in to work around 10 and leave at 6. He would come to work at 6 in the morning, set up the shop, make sure everything is running, and he would leave at like 12 every day. And he's the boss. He gets there early, makes sure everything's right. And then when the store closes, he's there, make sure everything's in order, right? And so when you work at Napa at individual stores, his job is what you seek. It's what you seek after. The manager, store manager, right? So I did this for about a year, and I started realizing what I got word. I think he shared with me his pay. He made $2 more than what I was making, and he's putting in way more hours than me. I get my 2 days off a week. He's off 1 day a week, and he still comes in on those days off just to see how things are going.
Right.
When I found that out, I'm like, this ain't for me.
Yeah.
This ain't for me. I told my wife, I gotta do something. Like, I can't do this. I can't do this for like, this is not how I'm gonna make a living. Like, I'm not doing this. So my wife was like, you should be a PE teacher. Be a PE teacher and coach basketball. That way you can stay in sports. So I'm like, you know what? I went back to junior college, and I, long story short, I got my A degree, went back to junior college, and I transferred to Fresno State. So I'm, representing the Fresno State Bulldogs. Transferred to Fresno State. And this is the first time, guys, this is hard for me. This is the first time I'm going to school not as an athlete. I'm actually going to school. And I can't take these BS classes. Yeah, for school. And I can't take these BS classes that I was taking when I was playing. So I'm actually going to school and taking real hard courses. So now, before in my previous college years, I would have 15 units, but 3 units would be just, one class would be 3 units, and that would be the hard class. Now I'm taking 15 units, 5 hard classes each semester. So I did it. Anyway, to make a long story short, I did it, got good grades, 3.0 type grades. And the last semester, guys, my last semester at Fresno State, before I got my degree, I had to take one elective. It was a writing course. It was an African-American course, writing course, taught by Professor Dr. Hassan Johnson, Black brother who's been there for years, teaching African-American history. But it was a writing course. So I started writing in the classes about our history, and I like doing it. I really like doing it. And my teacher was giving me good feedback. And so I love history. And so I was just writing about our history, writing stories. And I liked it. I loved it, getting good feedback. So then I started thinking, I'm like, hold on, how can I transfer? Let me see if I can translate this into sports. And so I will be at home, watch game, and I'll write. I'm doing this like I'm writing back in like the 60s. People don't do this no more. It's this. And so I would type my stories off the game, and I would send them to different publications. And they was like, you know what, you have some promise. You need to be worked with a little bit, but if you were in the NBA market, I'm in Fresno, no NBA team. So they was like, if you're in the NBA market, we could pay you. No, we couldn't pay you, but we'll get you credentialed to games. And I was like, wow. Mm-hmm. So at this time, guys, I'm 27, just now graduating. I'm getting my degree. I chose to move. I've told my wife, like, we're here in Fresno. I told you kind of how I was raised and the elements around me. Mm-hmm. So I was like, this might be the time to leave. We've been in Fresno pretty much our whole lives. And I got friends that's dying, going to jail. It's just getting bad. I'll make this known. My wife just showed me something. My dad is not a drug dealer. My dad is actually, I don't want this perception out there. My dad is actually a minister. He's actually a minister. But
that's cleared up.
Yeah, just clear that up. My wife, she be listening, like, let me hear how you portraying people. So, but my dad worked like crazy hours, like 12, 14-hour days when I was growing up. So I wasn't with him a lot. I was rarely with him a lot. I spent a lot of time with my uncles and my cousins, and they were more into those type of things. Just to clear that up. Thank you, babe.
Yeah.
So with that being said, I was like, let's move to Portland, because I went Sacramento, I've been to Sacramento before. Sacramento is 2 hours away from Fresno,
Mhm.
but I played junior college basketball in Sacramento my first year out of high school. And I was like, I don't want to do that anymore. I wasn't going to Los Angeles because that was just way too big for me.
Mhm.
Like I couldn't, you know what I mean? Like I couldn't even imagine how I would be able to like get incorporated there. It was just too big time for me. So I picked Portland. So Portland is the next NBA market close enough, 12-hour drive. And I felt like, okay, it's cool. Just if in case I fail, it won't take much for us to get back to Fresno. That was my
Right.
mindset. I
Yeah.
was scared as hell, like going out there. And, I'm reading up on Portland. There's not many people that look like me in Oregon. Oregon is not a black state, you know what I mean? So I'm like nervous about that. So, anyways, I go out there and I'm trying to get a job. Now, here I am with this degree. And I know you guys, both of y'all are in college, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, not to scare y'all, but my last year in college, it was funny too. So I'm majoring in kinesiology. That's what you have to major in to become a PE teacher. And so I remember my last year in college, they were telling me, our kinesiology instructors were telling us, you know what? The market for PE teachers right now is not looking good because each schools, elementary, high school, whatever, they're slowly weeding out PE teachers. I don't know if y'all know that, but over here in the States, they're weeding those out. It's not looked up in the same vein as an art teacher or a craft teacher anymore. You know what I mean? Like I remember growing up, you had to be in PE. PE was mandatory. You had to take PE.
Yeah.
It's not like that anymore over here. And so they told us that, and so I was already getting nervous. I'm like, huh. So now I'm almost about to finish this degree, and now y'all telling me these jobs are essentially being eliminated. So here I am in Portland, Oregon, and I got credentialed to be at games at night. I mean, to be at the games, the Portland Trailblazers games, but I need a job. I need to, pay, and I could not find a job. Like nobody, like there was no jobs. People would not hire me. And here I am. You always hear about growing up. Get your education, get your degree, and your job. I couldn't find anything. So the only job that I can find was to be a security guard at a high school and a security guard at an apartment complex. So I did those two things during the day, and then at night I would write for free for Slam magazine. So they would publish my stories, but I wasn't getting paid anything. And I hated that job. I hated, working as security guard because I worked at a town called Molalla, Oregon. It was like 30 minutes outside of Portland, and no black people lived in this area. And so I'm just all out of I'm just watching my back. It was just not the best, but I had to do,
Yeah.
that was the only place I could find steady income. So I did that for a year. For a year, I covered the Blazers at night, writing stories, and I worked as a security guard for a year. And then, during that year, we're writing for free, man. I established so many relationships within that Trailblazers locker room. This is when they had Brandon Roy, LaMarcus Aldridge, Greg Oden was over there. And I just broke a lot of stories based off of my relationships and them giving me stuff. Because when I walked in, because in Portland, I was the only black media member in that market. So day one, I remember walking into the Portland Trailblazers locker room. I walked in, they looked at me. It was like, who's this dude? You know what I mean? Like, who is he? Like, is he a player? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I was still looking good. I was still built. You know what I mean? I was still playing, and it was just it was refreshing for them to see somebody that looked like them in the media, and so that was definitely my end to help me get in, to help them start asking questions. But after that, it's about building rapport because there's a lot of black people in the media and they don't have the relationships that I have. You still like key to this business and the key to any field, any walk of life is that, some people, they all on their social media. That's the only time they know how to communicate. You still got to have personable skills. You still got to know how to hold a conversation in person. Like that is key. And that's what helped me. And so for a year, I dominated, did a great job. And then Comcast Sportsnet Northwest, which is now NBC Sports Northwest, after a year, They opened up a job to cover the Blazers, to go to every single game, home and road, do TV 2 or 3 times a week, and I got the job. I applied for that job, and I got it, and the rest was history.
Wow,
Oh,
like
yeah.
that's a great story. First of all, your journey, which is also, of course, why I wanted you here, especially just because of your amazing journey. It's also very cool for Mark and I, because it's kind of like the business kind of that we're, I guess, in right now, or I guess we want to be in, kind of. I I don't really know 100% yet what I want to do. I'm a film studies major, and I love sports and I love talking about it. So I see myself working in sport media. Um, I wanted to ask what what was if you do remember, what was that first big, I guess, moment you had as a reporter? Like, what was like that first big story that you broke and you realized, like, wow, like this is my job. This is like this is huge that I just broke this.
All right, I have it.
Yeah.
It just came in like that. I have it. So my first year working for free, the same like that first year. Um, it's funny because I have a first year where I'm working for free. Then there's a first year that I'm actually officially a paid.
Working. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So, but it's my rookie unpaid year,
Yeah.
and so if you guys know how the locker rooms work, if you ever guys go in the locker room, right? The way the structure is that, say I'll use Toronto. So say they say, well, Fred VanVleet is talking right now. So the way it works, so all the media heard will go over to Fred VanVleet, and he's talking. And then the PR for the Raptors will say, okay, now Siakam is talking. So everybody will go over there. And so that's kind of how things work. But for me, I always looked at this like I studied the game. I'm like, okay, everybody's going over this person and this person at the same time. They're all getting the same quotes. So when they write the story, they're all going to have the same story. How are they going to stand out? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like I was thinking that. So I would go in the locker rooms and I would, I would let the herds go over to the one player and I would go over to another player, talk to him by myself. You know what I mean? And so that's what I started doing. So Nicholas Batum, so he was having a bad game. And I was noticing it. Nick, it's not uncommon for Nick to have a bad game, so it wasn't like out of ordinary. But he was having a bad game. And the locker room opened. LaMarcus Aldridge was talking, so everybody was over there. And I was over there at first, but I was like in the back. I wasn't really listening, but I was just over there. And I see Nicholas Batum over there in his locker stall in the corner. And he got like half his head down, like something is wrong. So I go over there and I'm like, hey, Nick, what's up, man? How you doing? I go there by myself. And he basically tells me how his mom and his sister, they were trying to get from Paris to Portland to watch him play tonight. They were supposed to be at the game, but they got arrested by TSA. They thought his family were terrorists. Oh, wow. And so they got arrested and they're in jail right now. And I'm like, what? I couldn't believe what he was telling me. Like, whoa. He's like, that's why my head wasn't in the game, because I'm looking for them in the stands throughout the game. And they weren't there. And he said at halftime he went and he got a text from somebody and they told him the news. Like, wow, your sister and mom are in jail. And I believe it was in New York or something like that. And so that's why he was just out of it. And being that Nick didn't have a good game that day, he wasn't obligated to speak to media. So the media herd never got to him. So I got this story. So I asked him, Nick, are you okay with me writing this? He was like, yeah, you're fine. You can write it. Soon as so meanwhile, we're in the media room. So everybody goes to the media room to write their stories, right? And, Twitter was just popping it then. Yeah. So you see everybody tweeting their same story, had the same storyline. And here I am, boom, Nicholas Batum, mom and sister arrested, and it affected his play. And everybody's like, oh, everybody in the media room looking at me, oh, like, how you get that? Like, what? And that was the biggest story. Then it got national news. You know what I mean? That's a national story. The players family gets arrested and it's stuck at, and it
And
made
yet
national news.
you were the
And
only guy with it.
I was the only one had it. Only
Oh my
one
God.
had it. And so that's when I knew, yeah, I got to get my own stuff. I got to break my own news. I got to get my own interviews. Forget this damn scrum stuff. But the only way to do that is you have to have those relationships. You have to build a rapport. You have to build trust. And I had that with Nick from previous times. So where he felt comfortable sharing that with me. You don't get those stories if you don't have the relationship already established. So that's the one story. That's the one story.
And I guess that's also, I guess, how you kind of became a top reporter, I guess, is having that relationship with them. Because I guess many people don't, but you mentioned that you asked him before. Do a lot of people in media ask before they, I guess, release a story?
Yeah, you have. I don't know if a lot of media members do or don't. But I will say this is that I've had sometimes early in my year where I wrote a story and a player called me or texted me and said, "Hey, I thought that was just between us,"
Mm.
you know. And so with a story like such personal like that, I had to make sure, like I had to ask, like, "Are you okay with me writing this story?" And he was like, "Yeah, you're okay." Because at the same time, too, he want people to know why he's playing like crap too,
Yeah.
you know.
Right.
And so, you know, let me see. So I'm sorry, my computer's messing up. But yeah, and so yeah, I don't know if people do that or not, but that's what I do because I want to make sure we're all on the same page together, and I'm glad I did. I'm glad I did.
No, of course, of course. Did you want to jump in there, Jaclyn?
Yeah. I wanted to talk about your podcast because that's kind of how I guess I knew you the most because of your podcast. I remember I think I started watching it in like 2019 in class. I would always watch it in like math class or something instead of doing my work. Um,
That's sweet. I mean, hopefully it didn't affect your grade, but thank
no,
you
no,
for
it
that.
didn't.
I
It
appreciate
didn't. But like I always loved watching it. I always loved it too because you had that, I guess, that relationship with the players. How did the podcast start?
So the podcast started when I was at ESPN and
Okay.
well, it didn't start at ESPN, but when I was at ESPN, ESPN helped me. I was there for 2 years, and it helped me build up my stature, my credibility. Because definitely, I mean, being on Sports Center and all that stuff, and being able to do some, I did some one-on-one TV sit downs, and that went off well. And so that was the next step, like to start a podcast. But there's so many podcasts at ESPN, so I would be one
Right.
of 1,000. And so when I decided to make the move to Yahoo, that was one thing I wanted to start, and they wanted to start it as well. And this, I don't mean to keep going back to this, but this is what it gets back to relationships is that, you know, Damian Lillard is like, that's my dude. I think it's well documented how close me and him, are. And that's because we both kind of start off at the same time. Him in Portland, me, I was there a year before he got there. And we've grown together, and he would give me all his big stories, and he's from Oakland, I'm from Fresno. We kind of had a bond there, so because we're close right there. And so I covered the Blazers for 4 years with Dame blowing up. Portland's never had a player like Dame who was like relevant on and off the court. He's a guy that's in all these commercials. He's one of the best rappers
Yeah.
to ever, athlete rapper. They never had that. Portland's had a Brandon Roy who was good, but he was just a basketball player. He wasn't a marketable player. Clyde Drexler was a good player, wasn't a marketable player. Damian is that first mega star in Portland. And so I got to cover him on his rise. So I go from him to Cleveland, cover LeBron. And I covered LeBron when LeBron first went back to Cleveland. So I covered him, got the relationship with him, breaking stories with him, one-on-ones with him. From there, I go to ESPN and start covering the Warriors when Kevin Durant came over. And so I got the pleasure, but then I went national. But I covered some of the greatest players in this game as a beat writer. So I was with them every single day. And that helps you have that relationship where all these other players see that, oh, LeBron's giving him that info. KD's giving him that exclusive. Dame's giving them. Like, and so I was known throughout because players talk. And they talk about what media members to talk to or what media members not to talk to. You know what I mean? And so by me covering some of the biggest names and these other players that I didn't know before, like they watched that. And so automatically be like, okay, cool. So when I started my podcast, I started getting guys like Bradley Beal, Jimmy Butler, KD came on my pod.
KD, yeah.
Anthony Davis came on my pod. John Wall came on my pod. But a lot of those guys, I didn't have a relationship prior because I didn't cover them. But they already knew who I was because of what I was doing with these other big players. Because like I said, players talk. And so I've had a lot of fun with the podcast. And, I feel like it's a platform for them to come and, I want to give you, like, because I have a lot of conversations with players off the record where they would say some stuff that you guys wouldn't even believe they would say. Like they would talk and say things that you guys wouldn't even believe.
Right.
And so I wanted to bring those conversations to my podcast as much as I can. They still can't share you everything like they do off the record, but I wanted to give it to you as much as I can.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the identity behind my podcast. And I've been lucky to have some of the, I've had pretty much every big star player on.
Yeah.
And I'm having fun. But I thank you, Jaclyn, for watching that. Really do.
No, of course. I love it. I love podcasts. Of course, we wanted to do this as well. We are running out of time. I know we probably went a little bit over time. So, sorry about that, but I have a million questions, so I'm probably not going to get them all. I wanted to ask about your shoe game.
I got some more time. Go ahead.
You got some time. I wanted to ask about your sneaker game. I saw a video I think from a couple years ago of Stephen A. Smith, I guess making fun of your shoes. How's the sneaker game now? Is it better now?
You went in the archives right there.
Yeah.
That's definitely in the archives. My shoe game, no, I've gotten better. I've gotten better. Look, as you would see, like I didn't grow up with money. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I didn't have the style and everything put together. So what I thought would pass as being stylish, it don't pass for somebody like Stephen A. Smith. And he's the type of brother, and he let you know. You know what I mean? He ain't gonna do it like by closed doors. Whenever he see you, regardless of who's around, he's telling you right then and there. Like it can be me, him, Steph, and KD. Some people would be like, "Hey, Chris, let me talk to you, later on." Nah, he gonna do it right there, then and there. And but no, at the same time, Lloyd, I appreciate that's a big brother, man, Stephen A. And he does a lot for our culture, man. Having a big platform like that as a black man and saying things that we would say if we had that platform. So we appreciate him for that. But no, like he did tell me, like, look, like Chris, like once you get at a certain status, you have to you gotta look the part. You have to look the part. You know what I mean? Like, so I had these Converse Chucks, these white Converse Chucks, and they pretty much go with anything. So I felt that was good. I kept them clean. You know what I mean? They were clean. He's like, that's not the point. I see you in those shoes Wednesday. I see you in these shoes Friday, and I see you in Sunday. You gotta stop it. Mix it up. And so that's what he was saying. And so so he just told me, just to like, spread my wings a little bit, and and get risky. It's not, it's nothing wrong to try new things. So no, that's my guy.
No, that's great, Chris. I think we've gone all this time and we haven't really got into the NBA or basketball really too much. I wanted to ask a quick question about what you think about the NBA right now. My question has to do with the Harden trade. Do you think the Nets do you think they're favored in the East? Do you think it's going to take a while for them to get that chemistry going between Harden and KD? What do you think about the Nets, Chris?
Well, I mean, look. Three teams. That's three players were at top 15 in the
Yeah.
league,
Yeah.
two that's arguably top five. Um, they look scary. Obviously, they're having some struggles. You see what the Cleveland Cavaliers did to them.
Yeah.
They got. I wouldn't call them the favorites. I still got the Bucks as the favorites because they've been
Okay.
playing. They still got a nucleus that's been playing together for some while, and they just added Drew Holiday
Yeah.
um, and Portis over there. But Brooklyn is scary. They're not done. They still got 3 roster spots open, and so they still got to bring in a big, which they will address soon. But it's going to take time with those guys. It's going to take time with those guys. I think it's going to be the Nets and the Bucks in the conference finals when it's all said and done, because I think those 3 guys are just too good to just fail. They got to get used to playing with one another. You know, Kyrie and James Harden are used to being ball dominant.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And KD, he's a guy that can play with anybody. Anybody.
Right.
You know, it's not them. He doesn't have to adjust so much. It's those 2 that have to adjust. And I'm interested in seeing how it's going to turn out. But I think they're not my favorites. I wouldn't be surprised if they got to the finals. But I gotta give the Bucks the nod right now.
Okay. So I guess Raptors are not in the
Yeah.
conversation anymore, right? No more
Hold
Kawhi.
on.
No more. Come on.
Hold on. I mean, they had a good
Kawhi
stint in the
jersey.
bubble. You know,
Yeah.
they made some noise in the bubble. But Jaclyn, you wearing a Utah Jazz
Mitchell,
shirt
it's
right
Mitchell.
Now. What's up with that?
I love Donovan Mitchell. I'm a Raptors fan always, but Mitchell's my guy. So I'm supporting
Okay,
him,
all
but
right.
I still got my Kawhi
I see in the
jersey here.
background.
Yeah.
I see it. You know, I
Football
was just
stuff.
questioning. I was, I don't
I
know.
love Mitchell.
That was a questionable pick.
No.
Questionable pick.
So I guess Raptors are just totally out of the
I
conversation
wouldn't
for
say
like
totally out of it. I need to see. I think the Raptors need
another star.
somebody to develop. Yeah, they need a true star, a true superstar.
Yeah.
Siakam's a star. He's an all-star, but I mean a superstar. I think they need a top 15 player
Fair enough.
on that team.
I want to end it here. I have one more question though to end it. What advice would you give people like I guess me and Mark trying to get into the sport media world, and what is your secret to success?
Well, just like you guys are doing now, networking,
Mm-hmm.
key. And look, I don't mean to put a damper in things, but hard work is part of it. You got to have hard work in.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm telling you, you can work hard and never get a job in this business
Mm-hmm.
because connections are key. It really is. And that may sound bad for some, but it really is. So I will harp on that. Obviously, hone your craft, but network. And I will say this, that when I got into the business, I wasn't the best writer because y'all remember I had just started writing,
Mm-hmm.
In college, my last year before I went out there. So I'm telling you guys, I was a horrible writer. In fact, when I was at Comcast Sportsnet Northwest covering the Blazers, I didn't have an editor like you're supposed to have. Like
Mm-hmm.
I had an editor that would look over it after it was already published for like 6 hours. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so I would have in the comment section, it would be people like killing me,
Right.
ripping my stuff. You put a comma here, grammatical errors, and blah blah blah. Like I was still learning.
Right.
But what I had was I was breaking stories. I had exclusive interviews that people wouldn't give other. I had it to a point where players will save their good stuff for me. They'll say whatever they said in the media scrums and leave the good stuff for when they talk to me individually. So I was always making news. Now the news wasn't. It's like this is what I equate it to. And no disrespect to TMZ, but if you ever read a TMZ report, like there's grammatical errors throughout. You know what I mean? They don't really question. I mean, they don't really care. Like it's not something they want to clean up because they've been doing it for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
But they bring you the news. They break the news, and that's hard to do. And so I had that skill set already. I just had to hone in on my craft, on my writing. And once I got to that point, then I became a much more complete journalist. And so hone your craft and do something, specialize in something that separates you from everybody else. So network, definitely hard work, honing your craft, and specialize in something that separates you from everybody else. It can be that you're a great long form writer. It can be that you're a great newsbreaker. It can be that you're great with establishing relationships where you always get these one-on-ones. It can be, whatever. Establish who you are in whatever field that is that separates you from everybody else.
Wow, thank you. This means a lot for us, of course, as I said, being in this world. So thank you again for coming on. This has been amazing. I know we've been trying to get this. We were messaging late at night trying to arrange dates. So thank you again.
Y'all are persistent. No, that's why I say y'all are persistent.
You told me.
So I don't do too many of these, but you see what persistence gets you, hard work. You know what I mean? Not to say I'm not no big guest at all, nothing like that. But
yeah.
No, you are.
That's how it applies in the work life, in real world. So, I wish y'all much success for sure.
Thank you.
No, for
Thank
sure.
you so much.
We appreciate that a lot, Chris. So those are the keys to success there, and then some soul food, of course, as well, right?
Yes.
Soul food never hurt nobody.
Yeah.
So where can everyone find you on Instagram? It's Chris B. Haynes NBA, and Twitter it's Chris B. Haynes, right?
Yep. I also have a Facebook page, Chris B. Haynes NBA as well. But that's pretty much I find my work at Yahoo Sports, and hopefully when this pandemic ends, you'll see me on the sideline again for TNT. That's pretty much it. And check my podcast out. Post it up for Chris Haynes. We got Avery Bradley on right now this week. We'll have Clint Capella, the Hawks Huddle next week.
Okay, it's a good one.
We'll keep it rolling.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Awesome, Chris. Yes.
We appreciate it.
Y'all take care.
You too. Thank you.